How I transformed my twins' behaviors without crushing their spirit. I am Marcela Collier. I'm a certified parenting coach, and I am a mom of twins. They are 8 years old, and one of them is autistic, and the other one is a strong willed child. And I'm going to share with you today how I did it. I got a question last week from one of my coaching clients. I want my children to grow up in a house where they know they have a voice, they know they can be themselves. Because growing up, I was not able to be myself. I was always walking on eggshells and people pleasing my parents to not get punished. I don't want my kids to grow up that way. Do you relate to this, mom, to this question? And then she said, but the truth is that there are some behaviors that I'm like, okay, this needs to be addressed right away and needs to be corrected. And we have to address it in a very special way so the child knows that this is absolutely mm, not acceptable to protect the children, to protect the house, because there are some behaviors that are not safe. But how do I do that without crushing my child's spirit? And that's why I decided to create this podcast episode, because a lot of us grew up seeing our parents correcting our really hard behaviors like hitting or spitting or throwing in ways that hurt us. And that's what we don't want for our children. And a lot of parents that come to our parenting coaching have that same desire of raising their kids differently from the way they were raised, but with the big question mark of how can I correct big behaviors without the tactics that my parents used on me, such as the chanclas, such as spanking, such as bribing, such as, all those things that we don't want, that are against our values. On this podcast episode, I'm going to share with you a very specific story that happened with my twins. One of them pushed the other one down, and there was crying, and it was a hard behavior that I knew I needed to correct right away. And I'm going to share with you how I did it as a certified parenting coach, and considering that one of my children is autistic. So he has special needs. Hello, my name is Marcela Collier. I am a certified parenting coach, as I said, and I am the founder of HIC Parenting Education Agency. Our team of coaches and I have served 14,151 parents of sensitive and neurodivergent kids move away from reactivity, yelling, bribes, all those things that they didn't want to do, to raising their children with peace and accountability. And if that's the kind of thing that you want to raise your children with peace and accountability, this is the podcast episode, and this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Parenting with Understanding podcast. And if you've been a faithful follower of the podcast, or if you already have more than one episode and you are coming back, that's a sign that you are finding value in it, that you're liking it. So I encourage you to just open the description and leave us a positive 5-star review. Hopefully, let us know how this podcast helped you and your family raise secure children, raise sensitive or neurodivergent kids with peace. So let's go to what happened. What happened? I was in the laundry. My twins were in the living room. They were playing, I believe. They were playing. I don't know. They were in the living room doing something. And I was folding clothes when I heard a hard pop. And that's from history. That's when I know that something happened. When you hear a hard pop and then all the noise stops, if it becomes silent, run, because something hard happened. Something you need to address right away happened. So that's what happened. It became silent. And yes, surely after 2 seconds, my autistic son started crying and saying, Miguel, push me down. Miguel, push me down, and crying hard, hard on the floor. I'm hurt. Miguel pushed me down. So, what happened here? I don't want my children to have an unsafe dynamic. I knew that this goes against our biggest value in our family, which is treating each other with kindness. I knew I needed to correct this behavior. So I acted right away. But what happens? The traditional parent in me, that is still there sometimes, wanted to go hard on my other son, the one who pushed my autistic son down, and scold them and yell at him and remove iPad for the rest of the week. I wanted to set up a precedent for him. That was the traditional parent in me. And now I know it's the unhealed part of me that wanted just to punish my child for being not kind to his brother. So what happened? I didn't listen to that part of me. And if you still have that part of you, that makes you a human. Because when you grew up with yelling and punishment, your nervous system tends to sort to that kind of thing, or at least to imagine that, to solve conflict between your children. It is very human to think and have ideations on how on responding to our kids the way our parents responded to us. So that for sure crossed my mind, but I didn't listen to it. So that was the first thing that I did to transform my children's behaviors without crushing their spirit. I acknowledge that ideation I was having. Just go and scold your child and yell at him and take the iPad away for the rest of the week, and you don't treat your brother that way. You don't be rude to your. I stopped myself. I recognize my narrative. This narrative is something my mom would have done. It's not me. And then from there, I chose. I chose to react. Now, in the past, back in the day when I was in training on to responding my children without reactivity, I did an extra step that now I don't need it. But I did an extra step and I want to share it with you because it could really help you. And it is before connecting with your children, before addressing them, address yourself. Am I calm? Am I nervous? Am I angry? How am I? Because how we encounter or how we enter the conversation or the interaction with our children, that's 90% of how things are going to just turn out to be. If we enter the interaction with an anxious, reactive energy, our children are going to respond to us in an anxious, reactive energy. And an anxious, reactive energy from a child could look like yelling back at you, or hitting more, or becoming really defiant, or ignoring you, all those things. So the way we respond really influences the way our children respond. The way we feel influences greatly how our children feel. So back in the day when I was in training on how to respond to my children in a secure way, I would connect to myself first. And I would say, okay, Marcela, you're angry. Let's calm yourself down before entering this interaction. But Marcela, then what happened? One child is crying on the floor. The crisis already happened. There is no more crisis. Our brains, because we are parents who care about our kids, our brains tell us there is crisis, there is crisis, there is crisis when the crisis is over. The child is already on the floor, he's crying, he might be a little hurt, but there is no active behavior. So Taking care of myself in that situation back in the day would have looked like maybe taking a few deep breaths, reminding myself of my expansive beliefs of I'm a secure parent. I'm going to move towards connection instead of punishment. And maybe I would have used my calming sensory tools. It's a long process to get to this point, but I'm glad I went through the process because now I can come back to myself very quickly to address my children. So, and if you're like Marcela, but then how I want to start that process. I'm so glad that you say that you want to start because that's what we do with parents every single day in HIC parenting. Before I move forward to tell you what I did with my twins from connection and calmness, I'm going to share with you something that will help you get out of reactivity, bring peace to yourself, and start raising your kids with a lot more peace. 14,151 of the parents we serve went through a free class that you can access right now where they learn our parenting with understanding system of needs to break free from reactivity, bring peace to your parenting, and start raising children with peace and accountability. In this free class, you are going to learn how to remain calm in the midst of chaos. You are going to learn how to communicate to your children in a way they communicate back to you and cooperate. And you are going to learn how to raise emotional, healthy children in a world that is not that gentle with them. To access this class, just go to hicparenting.com. I'm going to leave a card up here and I'm going to leave a link down below in the description and you can access it right now. And I want to show you as well the testimonial from one of those parents who took this class. And of course, she became one of our coaching clients. And this is what she says after she was able to master the parenting with understanding system of needs in her family. Possible to get a calmer house, just feel better about the way that I parent. And I just feel like I am much in a much better mental and headspace. I just feel much better. And I know that my kids are more like they're happier. The past few days, my daughter Luna had been saying, "Oh my gosh, this is actually my favorite day ever." And so I told her last night, "Oh, you've been saying that this is your favorite day ever for a couple of days now." She's like, "Yeah, these days have been really nice." And how do you? So that is Jessica. When she came, she was feeling overwhelmed, not knowing how to connect and correct her child, and now she's feeling a lot more peace. So I approach my children. I approach my children from safety, inner safety, from confidence. And then what I did that instead of going to the hurt one first, I didn't assume who was the hurt one and who wasn't because I didn't have the full picture. I didn't really know what happened. And the last thing that happened is not usually what really happened. So what happened was, instead of taking sides, I acknowledged both kids. I see two children needing my help. And then I put the one that was on the floor on my lap. I asked him if he was okay, and then he was still crying, and I started consoling him. And I called the other one, and the other one didn't want to come to me right away. But I told him, "Hey, we're on the same team. I want to help you. And I know that if you did that, you have big reasons to do so. Because, I mean, they're almost 9. He hasn't done that since he was 4. I mean, he's old enough, so there is gotta be something really big that happened for him to act that way." And then he started kind of doing, in Spanish we call it pucheros, or in Colombia pucheros is kind of like, he started doing faces such as he wanted to cry and his eyes got full of tears, the one who pushed his brother down, kind of like, "Oh, you get me, you're not against me, you're not coming to punish me and yell at me, you are seeing me, you are seeing my side." So he didn't want to come to my other side of the lab, but it was okay. He took a break in his bedroom, and then I stayed with me at my other son. He eventually wanted to go to his own bedroom, so the kids were in their bedrooms for a little bit. Now, I have to say again, they are almost 9 years old, so they are developmentally there to take breaks on their own without needing my help 100% of the time. If you have children who are a lot younger, under 7 or even under 5, they need your full like physical presence, and they might not be able to access that skill of just removing themselves. They will just follow you. And that's okay. But in this case, that's what happened, and I let them have their moment to calm down. I told them, I'm here for the both of you. And that's another thing that I did to start transforming those behaviors without crushing their spirit. I wanted them to calm down first so I could start addressing each one of their feelings, their needs, and their behaviors, and correcting those behaviors from the understanding of their feelings and their needs. That's part of the parenting with understanding methodology that you are going to learn in the free class, and that we help parents in our coaching in our coaching services. So once they calm down, by the moment they calm down, my husband already came from work. So I was not alone anymore. I let him know what happened. And then he just waited with me in the living room. My husband and I waited in the living room for the twins to come out of their bedrooms. In the meantime, we were just talking about whatever. And when they came out, we said, hey, boys, before you do anything, we need to talk. And it wasn't with the you are in trouble, we need to talk tone. It was we need to talk about what happened. And that's another thing that helped me transform their behaviors without crushing their spirit. Because I was not in an overpowering tone, I was not in a challenging tone. I was in a I let's figure this out tone. When children sense are you're in trouble tone, they get defensive again, and then we start getting into power struggles with them, and then we open up another hole. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to correct the behavior to move on with our day. So what happened? They came out, and one of our twins, the autistic one, he wanted to be by us, and the other one was kind of like cautious because he knew he was the one who pushed down brother. He might have thought like, okay, I'm the most vulnerable here, the most likely to get a consequence. So he stood by his bedroom, but he was not all the way in the living room, and he was fine. We were able to talk to him because his bedroom is not that far. It's the bedroom right next to the living room. So it's fine. So, how did I transform this behavior? I started asking them, each one of them, what they were experiencing, what they were feeling, and what they were needing. And there was something amazing that happened that if I would have done that, I would have missed it. My autistic son, he has special needs, and part of his autistic symptoms is that he is not able to pick up on social cues. So what happens here? I'm going to drink water because I'm getting dry here. Sorry. So what happens? He wanted to play with his brother, and his brother, in his body language, was kind of moving away from him, kind of like, I don't want to be close to you. I'm not into you right now. I want to be by myself. His brother, with his body language, was communicating to him, I don't want to play with you. But because my autistic son has that autistic symptom of not knowing social cues, struggling with that, he did not pick up on that. And he kept trying to get close and closer and closer to my other son. My other son got really frustrated after he communicated in many different ways with his body language. And then he yelled at him, stop. So what happens? Autistic brains are very literal. And just the word stop means could mean nothing for an autistic brain and unless we are specific about stopping what. That's what my other son didn't do. He just says stop. My autistic son did not understand that unclear command. And then he kept trying to engage with him and get closer physically. So my son got more aggravated and he pushed him down, kind of like I tried with my body language, it didn't work. I said to stop and it didn't work. And nothing worked. So that was his last resort to push him down. It made sense to me. It made sense to me why he ended up in that behavior, even though I don't justify the behavior itself, because unkindness is never a good route to take. However, my 8-year-old son with limited social skills, that's what he decided to do. So now I have the full picture. It was a matter of lack of skills on both children. It wasn't that my non-autistic son was rude, that he wanted to hurt his brother. It wasn't that he wanted to push them down. It wasn't none of that. It was that he was not assertive or did not have the skill of communicating a boundary in a way his autistic brother understands. Now I have the full picture. So, how did I transform my twins' behaviors without crushing their spirit? Basically, once I understood their feelings, their needs, their motives, and their lack of skills, which skill they were lacking at that moment, I equipped them with better ways of relating to one another in that particular scenario where one wants to play with the other one and the other one wants to communicate a boundary. I educated my non autistic one on his brother's needs. You have to be clear about what do you want Santi to stop. Tell him right now. Let's practice. And then I had him practice. Santi, stop coming close to me. I need space. That's something Santi will understand because it is clear and direct and it is specific. Okay, Santi, if you see your brother moving away from you when you're getting close, that means he doesn't want you to be close. It isn't that our autistic children cannot learn body cues. They can, but it does not come natural. It's a learned skill. So, right there was a great opportunity for me to teach my autistic son that very important skill of reading that specific body cue when you want to get close to someone and someone is kind of trying to move away. It wasn't intuitive for him, but now he has it in his head and he's going to practice it. Moving forward, that day, I saw my sons using their skills. I saw my autistic son reading body cues from instruction and not nature, and I saw my other son communicating his boundaries a lot more clear. You transform your twins' behaviors without crushing their spirit when you get out of your narratives and assumptions and you start parenting from the understanding of their needs. And that's exactly what we teach you and what we coach you in HIC Parenting Education Agency. That's exactly what we do with our clients, with our coaching clients. And that's the system that we teach you in our free class. I'm curious, if you have more than one child, what was your biggest aha or realization or the biggest thing that you got out of this video? Tell me one, only one. Type it in the comments. Let me know, share it, because that will encourage other parents to start parenting their children from the understanding of their needs with a lot more peace. I'm saying type it in the comments if you're watching from YouTube. If you are listening to our Parenting with Understanding podcast, that will be a great review that you can give us on how you can apply the things that you're learning here on the podcast in your daily life, in your parenting. If this podcast episode gave you understanding of your children, if you know it's going to help you to parent your children with a lot more peace, we just share it with one person. Just send it to your spouse right now, send it to a friend, send it to your mom, send it to your sister, to your baby daddy, send it to them and say, hey, this podcast episode helped me understand my children a lot more. Thank you for coming here. And I want to tell you that it only takes understanding of yourself and of your children's needs to transform your parenting. I'll see you next week.